Dana, let me start with you. Great interview. What are you hearing from Jeb world as they prepare for his big announcement tomorrow?
Well, first on the substance, you heard a little bit of a teaser there. I'm told he's going to rely heavily on his record in Florida in order to not only to just say what he did, but prove that he actually did something, which from their perspective is different from most of the other people who are running. They're talking about what they would do. He's actually got a record. But let's just talk about the style. You just heard him there say that he knows that he is an introvert and he has to show his heart. Let me translate that for you inside the Bush world, which is that they know that he's a low-key guy, and that comes across sometimes as not having fire in the belly, and they're going to have to overcome that. That might not happen in tomorrow's speech because he's not known as an orator at all, but they're hoping that after that speech he's going to go to Iowa, he's going to go to New Hampshire, he's going to go to South Carolina, have the one-on-ones, have the town halls, have the meetings with voters, and they're hoping that that is going to help him overcome that, just showing that he's aggressively trying.
See, if I had to make a list of characteristics that would make a good president, I don't know that I would put introverted on that list.
No, you got to be a people person, I think. But I think you're right on, Dana. I've been in a number of settings with Jeb Bush recently, private events where the whole field has also appeared. And when you see him one-on-one, he is affable, he is engaging, he's thoughtful, he's great. When you see him next to people like Marco Rubio, like following Rubio in a speech, for example, or someone like Scott Walker with a little more pep in their step, and it has nothing to do with age. It's a personality difference. You just think he looks a little fatigued next to them, and he's going to need to work on, I think, amping up the personality if he's going to compete.
But there's something authentic about the streetcar interview with the cars going right behind him. Can you imagine some of the other candidates? All the handlers would say, "Oh no," they'd be stopping traffic and say. So, you know, the key with Bush is we've got when his dad ran 27 years ago in 1988, we did an 8-part series on him in the Washington Post and excavated everything. So people could look at it, and of course his dad didn't like it because there's some problems there. But we need to do that on Bush. We think we know Hillary Clinton. Believe me, there's more work to be done. Absolutely. I can come up with a to-do list for anybody who wants to look at these candidates. And that's where journalism can succeed, by doing something in depth, 8-part, 18-part series on both of these candidates.
Donna, I want to ask you, there's a tough quote about Jeb from John McCain, 2008 nominee in today's New York Times, this morning's New York Times. Obviously, McCain is endorsing Lindsey Graham for president. He just hasn't met the expectation level of what we expected of a Bush, McCain said of Jeb, and that's been a hindrance to him. It's true that at this point, his big brother, George W., he hadn't cleared the field, but he had many more endorsements, a lot more momentum going into the race.
Well, I got to give Jeb Bush this. He is trying to run as his own person, being authentic and true to himself. And he's owning to his own, the issues that he cared deeply about. And I hope he doesn't shrink from a conversation on Common Core, education standards, or immigration reform just because he has to run to the far right in order to win. He managed to go to Europe without making a mistake. Remember, his brother went there and called the Grecians, the Grecians. And
then there was Mitt Romney causing a kerfuffle with the Olympics.
But it's a long road to get to over 1,200 delegates that you need to win the Republican nomination. And he has to do well in Iowa in order to survive New Hampshire, and then he has to do well in South Carolina and Nevada to survive those next states.
And can I just say one thing about the not locking up the endorsements and so forth? What they argue inside Jeb Bush's campaign, and I think actually there's a lot to this, is that it is such a different world now. I mean, that was way pre-Tea Party.
Pre-Tea Party,
way pre 2012, when you had so many people running, and at one point or another, anybody could have been the Republican nominee. That is very much driving all of these candidates in, and it's also a time when, people are looking for outsiders, and Jeb Bush might not be that guy. But when I found, just observing him on this international trip, I really got to see him up close and personal. He is comfortable in his own skin. And, that could go a long way if people are looking for that authenticity.
Well,
but he doesn't have
for Donna to say he's authentic or appears authentic. I mean, that's it. Now, people are going to be tweeting.
Gotta go.
Now, it's too late to take it back.
My first roundtable. So great to have all four of you here. I really appreciate it.